What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor season 45, this time episode 7. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and sad episode for us here at Survivor Scholars because goodbye, Caleb. I feel like this was a pretty good episode, but has one of our least favorite things, so it's going to be great to talk about it.
Uh, so sad. Our boy gets voted out. But I feel like it does make sense to still want to get him out, even though his shot in the dark worked last week. I feel like we see time and time again someone slips past a vote like this and then they make it to the end of the game because people move on and then they don't actually vote like that threat out after they've survived a round. So it makes sense. And still sad though, but Caleb will probably be invited back for a future season, so it's okay.
Yeah, I definitely see Caleb coming back. Maybe like a pre-merge, post-merge, early merge thing. They definitely have a lot of potential, I feel like, with the recent really strong like pre-merge and early merge vote outs. I feel like they've had a lot of people who were pre-merge or early merge who are, still really good players and people would be happy to see back again.
And Caleb made the jury, so we get to see him every week on our screen still, so that's exciting.
Yes.
We start the episode off. Last week we talked about, okay, will somebody mention that only 11 votes were cast instead of 12? We mentioned Emily noticing that fewer votes were cast than people at tribal council pre-merge, but I feel like here we didn't hear anyone mention it. Maybe no one did notice it. People were probably too distracted by that shot in the dark actually working. 12 votes is a lot to count as well, so it does make sense that nobody caught it, seemingly based off the edit.
Yeah, I also feel like 11 and 12, very similar numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would be very easy for people just to like miscount. So
Especially with all of the excitement, hype of the shot in the dark hitting, makes sense. Austin does know that only 11 votes were cast because he didn't vote and he now has that full immunity idol. He says maybe Drew knows or noticed something was up, but we didn't see any confessionals or anything like that from Drew acknowledging that, like, yeah, Austin told me that he has the idol now, or I counted votes, or me and Austin discussed him not voting so he can get an idol, but we didn't see that from Drew's point of view or this episode.
yeah, I'm wondering if it'll be something that comes up in a flashback later, like when someone is like targeting Austin, they'll flash back to a conversation about only 11 votes were read or something. But yeah, I would have liked to see like either a confirmation or a denial because I feel like just leaving that hanging is not as fun.
Yeah. Like, since we've seen Drew, Austin, Dee, Julie as a foursome, did Austin tell Drew? Did Austin tell Julie and Dee about this? Maybe it'll come up later once Austin's idol gets revealed to more people. If like Drew, Dee, or Julie want to flip on Austin, then maybe it comes up in a flashback. I feel like that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm. But as it is, it sounds like nobody noticed. So I guess good for Austin playing it slick. I feel like this was definitely one of the easiest votes to, not play an idol in
Yeah.
or not vote in just because, people aren't paying attention as much. So
People aren't paying attention, and Austin was on the safe side last week. So even if he voted incorrectly, he didn't vote last week. Didn't really matter because he was safe.
mm-hmm.
But we also see in this episode Bruce calling out Katura at the start. I was like, okay, dang, this is interesting. Maybe one of them is going to be voted out this episode, but I feel like maybe next week we're going to see the whole Bruce versus Katura beef come to a head. I do feel like this split 5v5 tribal council probably saved Bruce this week. Like we see it in this, or the 6-6 tribal. We see it in these split tribal councils like this, that they just vote off the easiest person, the person on the bottom, because it's the easy vote with these split tribals, and the numbers are so small. So I feel like maybe Bruce would have gone, or Katora, or something would have come to a head this week if they didn't split them into 2 groups here.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this like Bruce Katura beef is like it's the beef that never ends, because every time I'm like, oh, surely they're going to figure their stuff out now. No, absolutely not. So
It's sort of, yeah, they mention it every single week. So I'm like, really, it's got to finish soon, right?
can we please finish it soon? Just because not to say I'm sick of it, but like I'm kind of sick of it. So
I feel like for Bruce calling out Katura here, it is very awkward. Like, why would you say this in front of everyone? Like, if you were in an alliance, I don't know, you just didn't really 100% trust each other. If you're going to call someone out in front of people not in your alliance, I feel like you should fake it and not call someone out in front of other people.
well, I think the thing is, Bruce explained like he's trying to get people to doubt Katura. He
Yeah.
doesn't like her and doesn't want to play with her. So like I kind of think it's reasonable that he did what he did. Like you can argue whether or not it's smart gameplay for him in the long run, but I feel like it did achieve what he wanted to achieve, which was, people like noticed there was tension between him and Katura, and you know, things are what they are.
Which, like you're saying, other people do notice, because I feel like doing stuff like this isn't really going to help your relationship. Like, maybe you could mend fences, build bridges between people, but if you're calling someone out like this, I would be like, yo, what is your issue? We are not going to work together. And like, we even see now that Kendra, apparently her and Bruce don't really ever talk strategy. They maybe have some beef boiling up now. They don't trust each other. This is sort of like the first time I feel like we're seeing Kendra verbalize this. And we also are seeing Kelly verbalize this too, even though Bruce is saying, yeah, Kelly is my number one. Multiple times this episode, we hear Kelly say, like, Bruce is a liability, he's annoying, but we need to keep him around because he likes me. He might not like these other people, but he likes me.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting though, because we saw multiple people like kind of say that they have beef with Bruce. Like Kelly called him the anchor dragging her game down, but he still like ended up not being the person that went home. And so in some ways I feel like being himself is turning Bruce into a goat, so he's going to last longer. So
It sort of seems like it, because Kelly is telling people that might have beef with Bruce, like Kendra, oh, we should keep Bruce around because nobody's going to bring him to the end of the game. And so maybe people do see him as someone to drag along, bring to the end. And I also feel like this Bruce Caleb conversation, like Bruce was so condescending to Caleb in this convo, like explaining the football analogy, and then in confessional saying, like, yeah, this experience humbled Caleb. It was so odd.
yeah, it was so weird. I kind of shut off my brain for that interaction because I was like, do I want to hear this? I don't think so. So I think it was so strange. I don't know. It feels interesting because I think I said from the beginning, like, I want to know, is it just Katura who has beef with Bruce, or does everyone have beef with Bruce? And it sounds like more people have beef with Bruce than just Katura. But I want this to be over with. Like, I'm done thinking about Bruce and Katura.
Yeah, hopefully next week, maybe something happens here. Someone got to get voted out so we can get some different beef storylines. Because, yeah, everyone just is starting to become annoyed with Bruce. Bruce is not liking like half the people on the tribe. And they're trying to mend fences, but not really working.
Yeah, so hopefully that storyline does come to a head soon, because it's starting to feel really repetitive.
Yeah, literally. So we get to the immunity challenge. You have to hold onto the tall pole. It is split into two teams of 6 for the double tribal council, where there are 2 immunity challenge winners, 1 per each team of 6, where the overall winner wins the sanctuary for their team, and they get to go to tribal council second. The first tribal, the person voted out, doesn't get to make the jury, which I was like, dang, that's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2 teams, team 1, we've got Emily, Kendra, Sifu, Bruce, Kelly, and Drew. Team 2, we've got Julie, Dee, Jake, Katura, Caleb, and Austin. I do wonder, like, did they make the feet hold smaller? I feel like this was a short challenge.
Yeah, when Jeff was talking about, like, oh, you've been up there for 17 minutes, I was like, I remember it taking like hours last time. But I don't know, maybe they made the hold smaller. Maybe people were just more exhausted because they had less food. I don't know. But 17 minutes definitely does not seem like that long.
It feels short, I feel like. I do wonder though, like, are the footholds adjusted based off of your foot size for this? Because it doesn't seem like they are. So it feels like if they're not adjusted, would it not be easier for people that, first off, weigh less because there's less pressure like on your feet, and then people with like maybe smaller feet because then you can fit more toes into the small holds? It feels like this is one where you'd have to adjust the like holds.
Yeah. I don't know though. This felt like a very short challenge. I remember them having like entire conversations on the polls and previous challenges. So I don't know.
Alas, but Kelly wins for the blue team, Dee wins for red, and she's the overall winner. I honestly forgot about the toe thing until she mentioned it after she won. I was like, okay, that's funny. It came full circle from like episode 2 when she was mentioning her feet and her toes. So glad they included it because I would not have remembered just from like those close up screenshots of her feet.
Oh, I remembered it because as soon as this challenge came up, I was like, this is the payoff to the D toe conversation. It has to be. I knew she was winning from the moment that like the polls came out. So
yeah, too much free foot content for Dee. Her nice, like, white painted toenails are like all over the screen this episode.
yeah, so that it was funny that this paid off in this way.
Yeah, good on the editors for including it back then and including it now.
Mm-hmm.
But the first team that loses, the blue team, it's basically like a Sifu versus Bruce who's going to get voted out. Drew is nervous, scrambling ish because I don't know. I feel like this is the second time we're sort of seeing this more like anxious side of Drew. Like with the Brando vote, he was sort of like antsy like this. Drew also mentions that he doesn't have his bag, so he doesn't have any advantages. Sifu also didn't have his bag, but this was never mentioned in the episode, which I feel like it would have been interesting if it were mentioned because I feel like that would explain like why he didn't play the fake idol or why he didn't try anything with the fake idol that he made because we saw he made a pretty cool looking fake, but it just doesn't come up at all this episode.
Yeah, I feel like they specifically didn't mention Sifu not having his bag because that would make it very obvious that Sifu was going home. Like I feel like the only like kind of argument against voting for Bruce instead of Sifu is what if Sifu has an idol? But I felt like it was pretty obvious that they were gonna vote for Sifu, especially once Kelly said like it's good for my game to keep Bruce. And so I feel like if they don't mention that Sifu doesn't have his bag, then there is no conversation about like, well, what if Sifu has an idol? Because like they know that Sifu does not have an idol with him unless it's on his person because he doesn't have his bag. But I feel like that's a lesson to all players. Always bring your bag everywhere because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it seems like missing the bag happening multiple times. Saw it last season with Matt, even though like he didn't really have anything. But if you don't have your shot in the dark, you just don't have the chance to play the shot in the dark, even if you potentially wanted to play it. It did seem like people were maybe on board to vote Bruce out, but like you said, I feel like Kelly is the person here that swayed people not to vote him. Kelly was trying to keep Kendra from not targeting Bruce here, even though Kendra was throwing Bruce's name out there. So, like, good for Kelly here being the mediator between these two people who don't really like each other. Drew was saying that he would rather vote Bruce out here, and he was trying to sway Kendra too. But I feel like this is a good episode for Kelly. She gets to keep Bruce. She persuaded people not to vote Bruce out, even people that don't like each other, which is a hard feat, I feel like, to accomplish. And she tells Bruce not to play the idol, like, yo, you are safe, which is also good, I think, because Kelly knows, hey, Bruce has this idol compared to if she flushed the idol, which you could argue might be good, then the idol gets rehidden. You don't know who has the idol. I feel like that would be more bad for Kelly's game compared to, hey, I know where the idol is. Bruce has it. We would just have to blindside him later on compared to flush an idol. It gets rehidden. Random person has it.
I think also it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility that Bruce would play his idol for Kelly if she asked him to. Like, Bruce has been telling Kelly, like, you're my number one, you're my number one. All she has to say is, like, Bruce, prove it. And I feel like that's something that people didn't really acknowledge. I think another thing that I wish people were talking about more is that Bruce had the right read on Kendra. He said to Kelly, like, I think Kendra is gunning to get me out, and she was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people say that Bruce has no social game, has no strategy, but, like, that was a correct read.
I do think it's also interesting that we didn't see Kendra here maybe want to vote Emily or Drew out because of the Brando vote. Like, right after Brando got voted out, we see a lot of Kendra saying, like, Emily flipped. I want to get revenge on Emily. So it is interesting. We don't really hear any conversation about, like, okay, it's not just Sifu and Bruce up for elimination, but maybe let's vote Emily. She doesn't really have any alliance members. Or from Kendra's point of view, let's vote Emily, she flipped on me. Or let's vote Drew, he flipped on me. So I thought it was interesting that the main storyline we're seeing is Sifu versus Bruce here, but there maybe the other people's names did come up, but it wasn't related to the storyline here.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like Sifu and Bruce, it makes sense why those would be the only two who were brought up.
And I feel really bad for Sifu, though. In confessional, he's talking about missing out on the jury potentially and it being a dream to make the jury. Just anyone who goes home in this first tribal council spot, like, knowing you missed making the jury on Survivor by literally, like, losing an immunity challenge, but also your team losing this immunity challenge as well. It's just got to be a really hard blow to be like a few hours short of making jury.
I think it's also, like, it feels bad because they already had the one, like, person who made the merge who didn't make it, and it's like, you're gonna do the fake merge. Make everyone who makes the real merge on the jury. Like, don't be doing them like this.
There's now so many more milestones that you need to like get to accomplish things, because it used to be, yeah, like, make the merge, make the jury. Now it's like, okay, make the fake merge, make the real merge, make one more vote, and then you can get on the jury.
Yeah. Which is, I think, also this whole, like, weird jumping through hoops thing is also why I don't like this whole split tribe, two different groups voting at separate tribal councils, because it's like Sifu had very little control of whether or not he was going to make the merge just based on, like, the immunity challenge. Like, it seems very unfair that that was the only way he could guarantee that he would, you know?
Yeah, it's like a crappy situation, and I feel like we've talked about this with the split tribal council. Like, it stifles gameplay because people aren't willing to make a move. So I feel like in both of these tribals, okay, Sifu's name was already being brought up last time, or even on original Reba, his name was being brought up. Caleb literally almost got voted out last time. So it's just like, okay, who's at the bottom of the totem pole? Let's just easy vote consensus. This isn't going to really piss anyone off because people were already throwing their names out there. You could argue, oh, that's bad survivor. You don't have a good social game if you can't survive a tribe split like this. But sometimes it is a little bit luck. You could really get the short end of the stick and just get on a team of 6 here that is totally bad for you, but another configuration would be really good for you.
Yeah. I in general I don't like the split teams. I think Kelly also said at their tribal, like, this is the first vote where she said something at tribal and I was like, this is the exact problem with it, about how it's another twist. And Jeff was like, oh, you can see it as a bad thing, like, oh, another twist, or you can see it as a good thing, like, oh, another opportunity. And I was like, shut up, Jeff. It's another twist. That's annoying. Like, come
And
on.
it's wild though too, because this is actually the first episode where like everyone is up for elimination and like could be voted out. Some people last week at the merge, that was their first tribal council because their team won every every immunity challenge pre-merge. And so then last week half the people were safe. So this is the first time in episode 7 that some people are up for elimination and are like voting, can be voted out at a tribal council. It's just wild to think like 7 episodes in, someone may have like never actually could have been voted out because they either didn't go to tribal or they were safe last week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's so weird to go from being safe, 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 safe to being one of 5 who are going to go home.
Mm.
Like, you go from having a 0% chance of being voted out to a 20% chance of being voted out, like practically, like literally overnight. Like, that seems so.
So feels bad for Sifu. He gets eliminated in this first one. Seems like a chill, cool guy. Then we get to the second tribal council. It's like a Caleb versus Julie who's going to get voted out. D seemed really, really on board. Let's just vote Caleb out because he got the most votes last time, which was interesting because usually people move on. They just let's vote someone else out. They don't really try to vote the same person out back to back like this. Austin is saying, hey, maybe let's keep Caleb because he's a big threat. He could be a shield for us, D. I feel like for like Austin, this does make sense. Caleb, big guy, potentially could be good at challenges, voting him out. Now Austin is potentially more exposed as like one of the buffest dudes on the season.
Yeah, I don't know, because I feel like Austin and Caleb are threats in different ways. Because, like, Austin is a buff dude, Caleb is a very social dude. And so I feel like they would be targeted at different times for different reasons anyway. So I'm not sure how effective of a shield Caleb would be for Austin specifically. Like, I agree that he's a shield, but
Mm. I would argue that Caleb is like a buff social dude. I feel like if people did notice Caleb sort of carrying Lulu in these pre-merge immunity challenges, like
okay, but being the strongest member of Lulu, not exactly something to brag about. Like,
that's
they suck.
true. I feel like when I see Caleb, I'm like, okay, he's tall, he's athletic. I'd be like, okay, probably could be good at individual immunity challenges, which could be a threat, similar to Austin, tall and athletic looking.
Yeah. I don't know, though. I feel like Austin, I wish we had gotten to hear more of his thoughts on this, just because I feel like we heard a lot from, like, Drew panicking, but we didn't hear a lot from other people.
That's true. For this part, I'm sort of like meh. D kept saying, yeah, Caleb kept throwing my name out there, but I was like, okay,
He
I
said
mean, I
it
guess.
once when he was about to be voted out.
Exactly. I was like, okay, I guess, but like he really didn't. Like he had to say something last tribal council to save himself, and now D is holding this huge vendetta over Caleb for saying their names last week. But I'm like, what else do you want Caleb to do? And he didn't really even call you out. He was saying you and Mama Julie would be helped by voting J Maya out, not saying let's vote D out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I didn't like that they still had the vendetta against him. It seemed kind of silly, but
You gotta do what you gotta do to save yourself. I feel like that should be more of a, okay, kudos. Sure, maybe you might have a little grudge because someone says your name, but really, they didn't say your name here. But I feel like sort of good episode for Jake getting more screen time. We're seeing some more strategy from him. He doesn't want to just be led around, told what to do, which I think that's good. He doesn't want to just be a follower. So good. He's getting screen time. Maybe a little bit bad though that some of the screen time he got was basically telling too much to Katura that leads Katura to flipping on them, but good for Jake getting more screen time.
I actually think that it's bad for Jake that he got more screen time because he said multiple times like I need Caleb to be my number. Like my plan is to go forward with Caleb, and I feel like so much of his like content was about his success pinning on Caleb staying this week. And so I feel like we could definitely see Jake's like quick descent into messiness because he didn't get Caleb to stay. He doesn't have numbers to do anything.
I could see that. I'm saying like good that if you want screen time, Jake is getting more screen time, which is good for him because you don't really want to be invisible on the television show. I would say it's probably more negative screen time, although I could see a Jake arc where here he's talking about, yeah, I don't want to be a follower. I'm trying to make this move. He sort of flubs it up, allowing Katora to flip on them, and then he's the only person left that voted for Julie. Julie might be mad at him, but Jake does own up to it at this tribal council. So I could see if he is going to have some kind of redemption arc or like winner story or final three story, that this could be the turning point from like, okay, he flubbed it up, but maybe he learned something from this and he's somehow going to turn it around in the next few weeks in order to fix this mistake.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to get, voted out very soon because he just doesn't have the numbers.
So we see Caleb and Jake. They have their plan. They're going to tell Katura about Bruce's idol so that Austin can't share this information because Caleb told Austin and some other Reba people last week that Bruce does have the idol when Caleb was scrambling trying to save himself. Which I guess it's good, like, okay, close all of these loose ends, share the information so that nobody will feel left out of the loop in case someone does spill the beans. But I feel like Caleb and Jake sort of threw themselves under the bus here. Katora is very smart. Like, she sees here when you're telling her this that her allies in Caleb and Jake haven't told her all of the information. So she's realizing, hey, actually, we might not be as close as I thought because you all made me look like a fool with like Jake and the ring stuff or Caleb being like not telling her this information. So I feel like for Katura here, it does make sense for her to flip on Bello and maybe become like a free agent or try to work with Reba because she's at the bottom of Bello anyways, even if people are like trying to maybe bring her in on this vote.
I think it's interesting because the reason that Jake and Caleb like decided to tell Katura was because they didn't want her to hear it from Austin. But was there any indication that Austin was going to tell Katura? Like, I am just interested how they made that leap from like Austin knows to like Austin is definitely going to tell Katura.
That's true. Maybe they're playing too much of 3D chess because it does seem like they're afraid Austin would tell Katura in the case of a tie that Austin might spill beans like that to try to get Katura to flip. But I agree with you. We don't really see, like, do people see Katura as the weakest link here to spill those beans about Bruce's idol? Because if you're Austin and he doesn't even see Katura as the person that they could potentially flip on Caleb to vote him out and not go to a rock jaw, then yeah, they're like thinking too many steps ahead here.
Yeah. It felt very strange. It felt like an unnecessary shot in the foot, but I guess they made their bed.
RIP. I like the flash forward segment here. I thought that was pretty cool, explaining their plan of, okay, we'll tie up the votes, we'll try to get Austin to flip. Austin's playing scared. This I thought was interesting because I feel like we haven't really gotten the indication as a viewer that Austin is playing scared. So maybe that's another negative for Jake's screen time here. But I don't know. For us as a viewer, we know Austin's got a lot of advantages.
It would be interesting to hear, like, I would be interested to see if Jake is going to be justified and if they're going to show us Austin playing scared in any future episodes, because I think that could also be really interesting foreshadowing to, like, Austin accidentally, like, idles himself out or something because he's playing scared. So
it could be like what we said. People get a lot of advantages. Maybe Austin gets 2 idols and then doesn't play either. Sort of like once people have things, they're maybe sometimes more willing to play one, but also sometimes less willing to play things because they want to hoard all of the things that they're getting.
yeah, and I feel like Austin is definitely a hoarder, so
So Caleb unfortunately gets voted out. So sad. At least we get to see Caleb on the jury. But with Caleb going, Emily is now the last Lulu standing.
which I feel like is something that none of us could have ever predicted. But I like that Emily explained at the beginning of this episode, like, me going to bat too hard for Caleb will be the end of my game. So I tried my best to help him, but I can't keep putting my neck on the line for him.
And that's what we said last week. Like, it was smart for Emily to vote with everyone else and to vote Caleb out, just so maybe you can ingratiate yourself a little bit to everyone else on the tribe, try to fit in a little bit. I feel like Emily can probably make it quite far now. Basically, as a lone wolf, as the last Lulu standing, people might not target her now. They didn't target her last week, even though she was up for elimination and Caleb was safe. Although I feel like I wouldn't necessarily want to bring Emily to final 3 because just saying you're the last Lulu standing, they were on the worst tribe ever. She has a really, really good story surviving all of these tribals when she easily could have been the first one voted out, and people know that she had that kind of abrasive personality from her talking on the barge in episode 1. So I feel like she could make it far now, but I would be wary about bringing her to the end. She has a really great story right now.
Yeah, she has a really great story. I do wonder if she will make it to the end, though, because the thing about being a free agent is you can get a little bit further than maybe she could have if attached to Caleb, but eventually people are going to want to keep their alliance members over you. So, or they're going to want to keep people in their alliance they specifically think they can win over. Like, Kelly is going to keep Bruce because she knows she can win over Bruce. So, which I guess is kind of the same thing as, like, Emily has a good story, but I think specifically you want people within your alliance who are going to vote with you who will, you know.
Yeah, and good story may or may not equate to making strategic moves. So that also depends, like the strategy aspect of it. But Emily did have that confessional, episode 1. It's like, it's a waste of time to go out there and not be the winner. I'd rather be the first person voted out. So maybe our girl Emily is the winner.
Yeah, I hope that Emily does get far. Like, it would be disappointing if, like, she is the next boot or something. I don't think she will be, but I would be disappointed.
Yeah, so I thought this was a fun episode of Survivor. Definitely let us know in the comments what you thought of this episode. Do you like these split tribal councils or not? But yeah, we will see you all next week with our next Survivor recap video, which I guess it's actually this week because Survivor is on tomorrow since it's Wednesday, which is wild to think about. It does not feel like a Tuesday today. So, not really much time to wait for Survivor. We've got 24 hours until the Survivor auction is back, so I'm very excited to see that.
Me too. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you all